Good evening and welcome to the second episode of the Floridian. Now, I know what you're thinking. I said every Thursday, but I just wanted to go a day before just because of the weekend that we had and the matchups coming up throughout this week and the next week in Florida. The Floridian teams are just stacked. A lot of the playoff pushes, last place seeding, and a lot of teams have been winning. A lot of win streaks and a lot of crazy, crazy finishes to some of these games, especially in the MLS. However, before I talk about some of the teams, specifically, I'll be talking about the Miami Heat and their playoff push for the sixth seed. And I'm also going to be talking about Inter Miami's game and how that team has really elevated. But before that, I'm going to go straight to the paper and tell you about these scores when I think about them. I'm going to go first in the NHL, the Panthers and Stars, 5-4. That game went to overtime. Panthers was up 4-2. And then within a couple of seconds, the Stars just went back and forth for goals, unfortunately. But in overtime, within 250, Barkov, the saving grace of the Panthers, besides Huberdeau, made that goal, making a 5-4, creating a 4-win streak for Spencer Knight. He's undefeated as the goalie, and honestly, I feel like he's going to be that guy coming to the playoffs. And speaking of the playoffs, the Panthers might be facing against the Lightning in the playoffs, and let's see how they did. The Lightning went against the Red Wings Monday, 2-1 against the Red Wings. It was a pretty, it was a good game. It was a good game. Slow game, but good game. Lightning play against Dallas actually today, May 5th, as well as the 7th. And then they're going to go to BB&T Center down there in Sunrise, and they're going to play against the Panthers on the 8th and the 10th of May. And those two games could be just regular season, warm-ups, jump into the playoffs. So that would be a really good two games to watch. That's Saturday and Monday. Uh, Panthers are obviously looking for that first, and they're going to keep on fighting for it. Now, off to baseball, Marlins and Diamondbacks 9-3. The Marlins play as well May 5th against the Diamondbacks. Miami went 6 runs in the 8th inning. This Miami team is red hot right now. Unfortunately, they could be better. They could be better, Jeter. I'm looking at you, Jeter. They could definitely be better. And then on the other side, in the Tampa area, Rays against Angels, Rays beating out the Angels 8-3. 8-3. So now they're one game above 500, which is it's great to see because you want the Rays to be dominant as they were last year in the playoffs. Now, I'm going to go straight into basketball here. Mavericks unfortunately beat out the Heat 127-113. The Heat didn't really have a lot of scoring. Of course, Jimmy Butler was absent that game. Duncan Robinson and Goran Dragic, 19 points each, which was the highest score for any Heat player that game. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. of the Mavericks, 36 points. I don't know about the Miami Heat doing that. 36 points for Tim Hardaway, but we're going to get into that later on. Of course, we're going to go straight to Orlando after that. They beat out Detroit 119-112. And you have to be happy with that game if you're Mo Bamba. That guy, career high, 22 points. And that's something you want to see from him because you want him to be the starter again. I'm not saying anything negative about Carter Wright, but you want Bamba to be there, starting. Be like the GM was right. This is a good guy. Check West is going to make another song about him, hopefully. Unfortunately, not going to make one about Mo Wagner. He had like 40 minutes. 1 of 5 from 3. 4 and 12 from the field overall. In 40 minutes? That's not going to win you any games. I know Mo has been doing really well compared to what he was doing on the Wizards and the Celtics earlier in the year. Of course, they actually play the Celtics today, which will play into the Heat's, 6 seed run. I'll get into that, of course. And then I'm going to go into the MLS. The MLS, these games are amazing. On Saturday, Orlando went against Cincinnati 3-0. Fastest goal in that game. Fastest goal within, I believe it was, 33 seconds. 33 seconds by Tesho. It doesn't get better than that. That's the first win for Orlando, a night game. You felt the atmosphere, the fans in the building, and they just dominated that game offensively. I mean, you couldn't really stop them. Cincinnati was really having a really bad game. A lot of, give me balls and just turnovers. I mean, the first goal, which was the fastest in club history for Orlando, City, it's like they just gave him the ball to Tesho. So, I mean, that was kind of games for Cincinnati, but a really good win for Orlando. Of course, as I said before, I was going to get into the Inter Miami being 0-0 against Nashville. And of course, as we know, Nashville was that team that took us out of the playoffs last year. But 0-0 is not the result you really want, especially if you're Coach Neville. However, you have to look at the pieces that were missing this game. Higuain brothers, of course, they're missing due to the death in their family, their mother, which we always, they're on our hearts always. And then we had Robbie Robinson. He didn't start, of course, hamstring injuries always being a problem in his career. Um, he did play later on in the game, but was taken out because, you guessed it, the hamstring. I mean, it was like no contact. You just saw him wobbling it off a little bit. I mean, they shouldn't have been playing him. Of course, Robbie said they weren't forcing him, but I mean, with the state of the team as it is, I understand the reason why he wanted to go out there. So pray he comes back for the Atlanta game on the 9th, this Sunday, Mother's Day, and but really a really good result for Miami defensively. I mean, Ryan Shawcross, first game at Inter Miami, he gets MLS honors, Team of the Week. Third player so far this season to get that. And I'm hoping that the defense goes really well. We played really athletic defensively because before in the preseason and even the first two games of this year, people were calling our defense and our players and our just overall the team just looked out of shape. We didn't have enough conditioning. A lot of the defenders were playing off these guys a little bit. Wasn't really aggressive. It was really aggressive, defensively, and we needed that because I think Nashville had like 59% of possession. That's a game you don't want. That's a game it's lucky enough that they have 0-0. I mean, we had a couple of chances, but in the first 20 minutes, Morgan had a really controversial call. Should have been a goal, but these referees are gonna do what they have to do. But a really good defensive game for Inter Miami, and I think the result there is gonna build them for Atlanta. And hopefully, I mean, Robbie Robinson will be fine at that point. We don't really know the full details of that injury, if it's still day to day or he, aggravated it. But hopefully, we do get a couple of wins at home on the 9th. Now, as I said before, I was going to go right into the situation in Miami for the 6th seed. The Miami, they have a really hard schedule. I mean, the Mavericks are just another rock in the road. They're another, you know, obstacle to go over, and these obstacles are mountains. I mean, the Mavericks obviously had a huge game, Hardaway, 36 points, and they pulled away in the second and third quarter. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind that the only way that the Heat would even come back in that game is if their defense woke up, or they at least had some of the guys, put in some, offensive power. I mean, Kendrick Nunn. I mean, let me look at this. Let me look at this. Let me tell you this right now. Kendrick Nunn went 5 and 16 from the floor, right? And Andre Iguodala, the man you want shooting, if the world is at stake, 0 points. I mean, you can't have that. You can't have that. And Iguodala went for two shot attempts. What are you doing? That's not a way to run an offense. I know Eric Spoelstra is pretty pissed off at his team's performance, and they had to go against the Celtics 2 times before this season ends. The Bucks. I mean, they're going against teams over 500. It's not gonna be an easy road. The Celtics have to go against the Orlando Magic tonight. Then they go against the Miami Heat twice, and after that, I think the hardest game after that is probably the Knicks. And no, I'm not saying anything negative about the Knicks. They're 11 out of their last 12 games, which is phenomenal, thanks to Julius Randle and all that. But you're fighting for a 6 seed, which you're only a game ahead of the Celtics right now. It's gonna be a hard road. I'm not saying the Heat can't pull it off, but they need to win those two in the Boston. If Boston wins against Orlando tonight, it's gonna be a neck and neck. If Orlando somehow wins this game, which I'm hoping they do, you know, because Mo Wagner revenge game against the Celtics. I mean, he's probably gonna drop 40 points, 20 rebounds, a couple of assists, an NBA highlight reel poster, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully he has a good game against the Celtics as a revenge game. Hopefully, I doubt it. So that win, if they do win against the Magic, it's gonna be neck and neck. It's gonna be like the season restarted. It's gonna be basically a playoff series before the playoffs because it's play-in, and this play-in, it's a terrible idea. I mean, I hated it from the jump. I mean, to see that LeBron agrees with it, and all these other players agree with it, I'm not alone. I mean, Adam Silver is probably gonna get, you know, I mean, he's gonna get what he gets. I'm not saying it like a threat, but when the media picks up on LeBron's comments, Nike's gonna pull in and be, "Hey, Adam, you mind telling me what you're doing with this play-in situation? It just doesn't make sense. The 10th seed Wizards could be able to within less than a week. You know what I mean? I mean that's just ridiculous. And I get the idea of making the game a little bit more entertaining. Give these other teams a chance, but I mean you just can't do that. You know, I mean, what's the point of the playoffs? What's the point of the eighth seed? What's the point of the hype? What's the point of the lottery? I mean, if I had a team that was picking ping pong balls because they were the 10th seed, but for some reason they were deep in the second round, and I'm not saying, that what a 10th seed can make it to the second round like that, it's obviously going to be an obstacle. It's the playoffs. It's the end of the year. It's high intense, a lot of injuries, especially this year with the schedules going like game after game after game after day after day. So it makes sense, but I don't know. I mean, next year they're probably gonna get rid of this play in, and hopefully we don't see this again. You know, this year being with COVID and a lot of the injuries and just 72 games instead of the regular 82, which I still can't believe that. I really do believe they could have added 10 games. I mean, it's May. It's not going to be the ending of May when the season ends, so I can't even believe that. So it's really ridiculous. It really is. But basically, or Miami with that loss, they're going to be getting ready to for an away against the Celtics. Of course, Boston and Orlando tonight, looking for that win. So it's literally right there, neck and neck. And Miami's going to be needing for that playoff 6 seed spot for avoiding the play in. And that'll be the ending of this episode. I want to thank you for joining me today. Of course, as I said before, Thursday every single week. And it still is going to be Thursday every single week. Actually, tomorrow I'll be making a mock draft results compared to the actual draft for the NFL from last week. Uh, Very surprising picks. Do I agree with them? I mean, no. Who can? I mean, especially for the Dolphins, who can agree with them? I mean, Waddle over Devontae Smith, obviously a shock. It's a huge shock, but there was a lot of big surprises in that year's draft, and a lot of quarterbacks taken in the first 2 rounds. I mean, it's really is surprising what happened. I mean, you talk about Trey Lance coming to the 49ers over Mac Jones, the Chicago Bears trade up to get their guy in Justin Fields, and of course, I mean, the Jaguars, they got their guy. They got Trevor Lawrence. I mean, and ETN in the same first round, so that's the Clemson connection. So now Miami's making Alabama South. Could be Clemson South in Jacksonville. So I'll definitely go into the draft. I'll definitely get you updated on that on Thursday, and I'll tell you how those players match up with their teams. What's the grade on those draft picks? I mean, it's gonna be a really good episode, probably less than half an hour. I'll try to make it less than half an hour, and I'll just be going through, the needs that they really picked up. But I want to thank you again for coming in for the second episode of the Floridian. As I said before, my first episode. This is basically like a little podcasting I'm trying to do to get myself experience. And if you have, you know, any comments, make a comment down below. If you want to subscribe, subscribe. I mean, I'll love to grow this family that we have as a Floridian. But I hope to see you tomorrow. I hope to align you with a little bit of my results of the draft. But thank you, and I hope you have a good night.